હેલો, થઈ ગયા બધા જોઈન? હેલો, હેલો,
હા મેમ.
થઈ ગયું તમારું પ્રેઝન્ટેશન?
હા મેમ, શેર
હવે
કરો.
ક્યાં છે તું?
અહીંયા જ છું મેમ, બાજુવાળા ક્લાસરૂમમાં.
સારું, ચલો. તમારા
કરો
ગ્રુપમાં બધા આવી ગયા?
હા મેમ, આવી ગયા.
હા, ચલો ચાલુ કરો. બધું જ એડ કર્યું છે ને પીપીટીમાં?
મેમ હા, એટલે બધું એડ તો કર્યું છે. મેમ એક જ મિનિટ, સાહેબ લબ્ધી નથી લેક્ચરમાં.
હા, વાંધો નહીં, બોલાવી લો એને.
એક જ મિનિટ.
હા. કોઈ એબસેન્ટ ના રહેવું જોઈએ તમારે ગ્રુપ વાળું. હા,
હા હા મેમ, ઓકે.
હા. ચલો પછી સ્ટાર્ટ કરી દો. તમને ટાઈમ ઘટશે, 1 જ કલાક છે તમારી પાસે.
યસ મેમ, કરી જ દઈએ છો.
હા હા, આવી ગઈ. લબ્ધી નથી આવી તો
એ આવે છે 5 મિનિટમાં. એ એકચ્યુઅલી એક કામમાં છે.
ઓકે, હું ચાલુ કરી દઉં છું.
હા, કરી દે.
કન્ટેન્ટ એટલે સ્ક્રીન
જલ્દી
દેખાય છે?
જોઈન થઈ જાઓ. હા,
સ્ક્રીન
હા
દેખાય છે કૃતિ?
દેખાય છે. હા હા.
Okay, so our today's topic is atomic absorption spectroscopy. First of all, what is atomic absorption? First of all, what is atomic spectroscopy? Atomic spectroscopy is a study of electromagnetic radiation which is absorbed and then emitted by the atoms. Since unique elements have characteristic spectra, atomic spectroscopy is specifically the electromagnetic spectrum or mass spectrum is applied for determination of elemental composition. કોઈ બી elemental composition નું determination કરવા માટે spectroscopy, atomic spectroscopy નો use થાય. It can be divided by atomization source or by the type of spectroscopy used. In the later case, the main division is between optical and mass spectroscopy. આગળ types of spectroscopy બી આવશે, એમાં ડિટેલમાં સમજાવી દેવામાં આવશે. માસ સ્પેક્ટ્રોસ્કોપી જનરલી મોટેથી બોલું મેં?
હા, થોડુંક મોટેથી બોલો.
હા, વાંધો નહીં. Mass spectroscopy generally gives significantly better analytical performance, but is also significantly more complex. હવે આ છે ને સોડિયમની એટોમિક સ્પેક્ટ્રોસ્કોપી ડિટરમાઇન કરેલી છે આમાં. સો જે વ્હાઇટ લાઇટ હોય ને એને સોડિયમના એટમ્સ જોડે રિપ્લેસ કરી દીધું છે. તો આમાં એ સૌથી પહેલાં ફોટોન્સ એમિટ કરે. તો એ જે ફોટોન્સના રેઝ એમિટ થાય ને એ સૌથી પહેલાં સ્લિટમાં જાય. લાઇટ એમિટેડ બાય Na એટમ્સ ઇઝ નેરોડ બાય ધ સ્લિટ. એ સ્લિટથી નેરોડ થાય, એના પછી મતલબ એ સ્પ્રેડ થાય, એના પછી પ્રિઝમના હેલ્પથી એ જે રેઝ હતા, જે સ્પ્રેડેડ રેઝ હતા, એ બધા બેન્ડ થાય અને આવી રીતે આપણને કંઈક એની સ્પેક્ટ્રોસ્કોપી ખબર પડે અને એની વેવલેન્થ બી આપણને ખબર પડે. There are actually, ma'am,
બોલવા લાગો, ચલો કેમ પાછા અટકી ગયા?
કબીર તારો અવાજ નથી આવતો.
હલો, હવે આવ્યો?
હા.
હલો, આવ્યો?
હા.
વચ્ચે નતો આવતો?
હા.
સારું, વાંધો નહીં. So list of atomic spectroscopic methods. Atomic spectroscopic method actually આના મેમ એકચ્યુઅલી તો મને ખબર નથી કેટલી હોય, પણ જેટલી મને પોસિબલી મળી એટલી મેં આમાં એડ કરી છે. એટોમિક એબ્ઝોર્પ્શન, પછી એમિશન, પછી ફ્લોરોસન્સ સ્પેક્ટ્રોસ્કોપી, પછી એક્સરે ફ્લોરોસન્સ અને ઇનઓર્ગેનિક માસ સ્પેક્ટ્રોસ્કોપી. આમાંથી સૌથી કોમ્પ્લેક્સ વાળી અને સૌથી એક્યુરેટ વાળી જે હોય એ ઇનઓર્ગેનિક માસ સ્પેક્ટ્રોસ્કોપી છે. આ ખાલી ડાયાગ્રામ છે એટોમિક એમિશનના, પછી આ છે એબ્ઝોર્પ્શનનું અને આ છે ફ્લોરોસન્સનું. આમાં ફ્લેમ મોનોક્રોમેટર દ્વારા લાઇટ રેઝ જે હોય એ સ્પ્રેડ થાય અને પછી એનું જે સ્પેક્ટ્રોસ્કોપી હોય એ ડિટરમાઇન કરે.
ક્યારે લાઇટ સ્પ્રેડ ન થાય? મોનોક્રોમેટર શું કરે? હે?
મોનોક્રોમેટિક એક જ વેવલેન્થ છે, એક ટાઈમમાંથી એક પાસ આખા સ્પેક્ટ્રમમાંથી એક વેવલેન્થ.
હા, તો તું ખોટું બોલે છે કબીર. મોનોક્રોમેટર ક્યારે લાઇટ સ્પ્રેડ ના થવા દે. કોઈ એક જ સિંગલ બીમ ને લાઇટ સિલેક્ટ કરીને એને પાસ થવા દે, એટલે તેનું નામ મોનો મીન્સ સિંગલ.
અચ્છા, એટલે નેરો બેન્ડ ઓફ વેવલેન્થ્સ. એ જે નેરો મતલબ વેવલેન્થ્સ ની જે નેરો બેન્ડ હોય એને બીજા
તારે તો બીજે ખોટું સાંભળે.
હા મેમ, એટલે ઇન્ટેન્શનલી ખોટું નતું બોલ્યો પણ
હા, ચલો આગળ બોલો.
Okay, principle of AIS is explained by Kriti.
Good afternoon, everyone. કબીર સ્લાઇડ ચેન્જ નથી થઈ હજી.
ચેન્જ કરી મેં શાયદ નહીં દેખાતી.
Okay. The principle of atomic absorption spectroscopy is that it quantitatively measures the concentrations of elements present in a liquid sample. It utilizes the principle that elements in the gas phase absorb light at very specific wavelengths, which gives the technique excellent specificity and detection limits. So what this exactly means, so if we want to understand the principle of atomic absorption spectroscopy, I'll just give a little brief of atomic absorption. So like the science of atomic spectroscopy has generally yielded us three techniques for analytical use, as Kabir already told us, that it is atomic emission, atomic absorption, and atomic fluorescence. Now, if we're going to understand the principle of atomic absorption, what it does is that the quantity of interest in atomic absorption is the amount of light which is resonant wavelength, which is absorbed with the resonant wavelength, which is absorbed as the light passes through the cloud of atoms. We have already studied that fact that when certain sort of radiation light passes through the absorber, through the spectrometer, certain amount of light is going to be absorbed by the electrons or atoms present in the compound. More amount of light absorbed proves that there are more number of atoms present. that is the basic principle of atomic absorption spectrometer. As the number of atoms in the meter will increase, the light path will increase and the light absorbed will also quantitatively increase. By measuring the amount of light that is absorbed, we will get a quantitative determination of the amount of analyte present. So that's how the principle of atomic absorption spectroscopy works. Next slide. Atomization. Atomization, also called the spraying method, is a process in which molten metals are broken into small drops of liquid by high-speed fluids, gas or air or inert gas, or fluids with centrifugal force, and then solidified into powder. In the most basic terms of understanding of atomization, what we can say is that it is the simple conversion of the sample into gaseous atoms which absorb radiation. So that is the basic common understanding of atomization. In atomic absorption spectroscopy, generally, as we already saw, that the sample is in a solution format. So what atomization does is that it breaks the solution down into fine mist, that is something similar to aerosol, and that finally breaks the entire sample in the presence of heat into individual atoms. That is called atomization. Next slide. So there are various methods of atomization. Before we understand methods of atomization, I'll just briefly tell you the kind of atomizers that exist. There are mainly two types of atomizers. So there is a basic method of atomization that I said. I'll say it in more technical terms. That first of all, what happens in atomization generally, in not a specific method, is that the solution is drawn through a small tube. Then it is taken to the nebulizer. What is the purpose of a nebulizer? It's going to break the solution into finer mist, and that is carried to an atomizer. What is an atomizer? It's something that analyzes the sample, and it converts into converts it into individual atoms. So atomizers are of two types: discrete and continuous atomizers. What continuous atomizers do is that when the analyte is introduced, it is going to be introduced in a very steady manner, whereas discontinuous will be giving the sample in discrete manner. There are three methods of atomization: electrothermal atomization, flame atomization, and then there are other methods of atomization. Electrothermal atomization. During electrothermal atomization, the sample goes through three phases to achieve atomization. The first one is that it is dried at a low temperature. As I already said, that generally the samples that we use are in a liquid format. So, first of all, in electrothermal atomization, it is dried at some low temperature. After that, the sample is ashed in a graphite surface, followed by a rapid temperature increase within the furnace, where the sample becomes vapor containing atoms, which is the actual purpose. This absorption is measured above the heated surface where the sample was atomized. Next slide is going to show the image, and I'll take you through the image. The next slide. Okay, so this image shows that there is a graphite furnace which is made up of a graphite tube, which, as you can see, is open from two sides, and there is a hole in the center of the tube. This hole is used for sample introduction. Here the sample is introduced into the equipment, and that tube is encased with graphite electrical contacts so that heat can be served into this sample. Now, there is water sometimes used, which is used to keep the furnace cool and to make sure that the temperature is maintained. Because, as we already said, that as the principle of atomic absorption says that the number of atoms increase in a sample, absorption is going to increase, and that's how we understand spectroscopy. Similarly, To make sure that those atoms exist in the sample, we have to heat them up and form atoms from the already existing chemical molecules. That is why water is added to maintain the temperature and keep the furnace cool so that it doesn't overheat and the atoms do not split into ions. Along with water, an external stream of gas, as you can see, is given. There is an external gas flow that you can see. That is also given to prevent the outside air and from the environment entering inside, so that reaction does not take place. If outside air accidentally also gets inside the equipment, it can consume and destroy the tube because the atoms are going to be in individual forms. That is why. An internal stream of inert gas flows through the tube, carrying away vapors from the simple matrix. So this is how electrothermal atomizers work. There are some limitations, which is that because of the matrix, there is some there is some scale of error possible, because despite the fact that there is casing and inert gases are flown, there are chances that atmospheric air will enter and destroy the sample, which will cause some changes in the final solution. Next slide. Flame atomization. Now, as we, fuel and flame atomization. After being nebulized by gaseous oxidant and mixed with fuel, the sample is carried into a flame where the heat allows atomization to occur. Over here, we are going to have a gaseous sample. Once the sample reaches the flame, 3 steps occur: dissolution, volatilization, and dissociation. First, a molecular aerosol is produced when the solvent evaporates, which is the dissolution. When then it's converted, an aerosol is formed into gaseous molecules, which is called the volatilization of the sample. And finally, these molecules will dissociate to form atomic gas, which is the dissociation. And this is the atomization, the conversion from sample to atom by using flame and in the presence of a fuel. During this process, cations and electrons can also be formed, and that ionizes the gas. Next slide. This is the image of a fuel. Before I understand how this, I explain how this relates, I'll tell you the common fuels and oxidants used. So generally natural gas, hydrogen, acetylene, they are used as fuels at some approximately 3000 degrees Celsius, and with oxidants like oxygen or atmospheric air with respect to whatever kind of fuel we require. This mixture is used generally because we need to achieve a specific temperature range. As I said, we cannot ionize it or because of the fuel temperature itself. And that is why these certain combinations are used to make sure that the temperature range is followed. Because dissociation and breaking of molecules of the atoms is easier with more heat present, oxygen is generally the common oxidant that we already know. Now, what the image shows is the flame structure. All locations of a flame in this, as you can see that all these locations are not equal in temperature and they are not equal in the fuel to oxidant ratio. There is a primary combustion zone, secondary combustion zone, and there is an interzonal region. And if you can read, it is written that fuel, which is generally acetylene, and air are mixed with a nebulizer mist, and this mixture is then introduced into the flame, which causes the flame to heat, and 3 kinds of combustion zones are present in the flame itself. These are the 3 main zones of a flame, and they are prevalent because the internal zonal region is going to have free atoms and it is the hottest area, and therefore it is used for the spectroscopic analysis that we need, because that temperature is going to be constant. It is therefore the region that is most commonly used, and the flame usually rises above 5 centimeter to the burner tip, which is called the temperature point. This portion of the flame that is used for atomic absorption spectroscopy is specifically used according to the kind of sample that is being analyzed. So this is a general understanding of flame of how flames are distributed and what kind of flame is used for the spectroscopy. And this method or this process is called flame or fuel atomization. Next slide. Now we will discuss three general methods of atomization. The first one being glow discharge atomization. A glow discharge device serves as a versatile source as it can simultaneously introduce and atomize the sample. The glow discharge occurs in a low pressure argon gas atmosphere between 1 to 10 torr. In this atmosphere lies a pair of electrodes applying a DC voltage of 250 to 1000 volts to break down the argon gas into positively charged ions in the sample. So what this says is that there is a device which is used as the versatile source, the source that we require. Along with that, it simultaneously at the same time introduces and atomizes the sample. What happens is that in a low pressure zone, argon gas is introduced, that the pressure is something about 1 to 10 torr, and in this atmosphere there are going to be electrodes which will have a certain voltage which will be able to break down the gas that we have introduced in ions and electrons. These ions and electrons, under the influence of the electronic field, are accelerated into the cathode surface containing the sample, bombarding the sample and causing neutral sample atom ejection through the process known as spluttering. So after the gas that is introduced is split into positively charged ions and electrons, what happens is a process which is called sputtering. What happens in sputtering is that the ions that are present in the presence of the potential difference are going to shift to the cathode because they are positively charged, and that is going to cause a neutral sample atom ejection. The atomic vapor produced by this discharge is composed of ions, ground state atoms, and a fraction of atomic excited atoms. When the excited atoms will relax back into the ground state, a low intensity glow is emitted, giving the technique its name, glow discharge atomization. As we already saw, first of all, discharge takes place. After that, atomization takes place in the process of sputtering, and then it glows, which helps us to know that atoms have relaxed back to their ground states and atoms have been formed from the gas that we entered, that we introduced. That is why this method is called glow discharge atomization. Next slide. Hydride atomization. Hydride generation techniques are specialized in solutions of specific elements. This technique provides a means of introducing samples containing arsenic, antimony, selenium, bismuth, and lead into an atomizer in the gas phase. These are certain samples, elements which are generally considered to be highly reactive, and thus their atomization is more difficult. This method is used for those kinds of elements that can convert the sample which is in the gaseous phase into atoms. With these elements, hydride atomization enhances detection limits by a factor of 10 to 100 compared to alternative methods. Hydride generation occurs by adding an acidified aqueous solution of the sample to a 1% aqueous solution of sodium borohydride, all of which is contained in a glass vessel. The volatile hydride generated by the reaction that occurs is swept into the atomization chamber by inert gases where it undergoes decomposition. So what happens here is that the elements will decompose, and that is going to happen in the presence of an acidified solution, because none of the elements present are going to be acidic in nature by themselves, and which is going to form a neutral solution. This process happens in the presence of an analyte and can be detected by absorption or emission spectrometry. Next. Cold vapor atomization. The cold vapor technique is an atomization method limited to only the determination of mercury, due to it being the only metallic element to have large enough vapor pressure at ambient temperature. Because of this, it has important use in determining organic mercury compounds in samples and their distribution in the environment. Generally, compounds which contain mercury are not used in other methods of atomization because it has a very high vapor pressure. This method is used specifically for this, and therefore it is also used alternatively to determine the amount of organic mercury present in a certain sort of sample. This method initiates by converting mercury into mercury ion by oxidation, followed by a reduction with tin chloride. The mercury is then swept into a long pass absorption tube by bubbling a stream of inert gas through the reaction mixture. The concentration is determined by measuring the absorbance. By measuring the absorbance of this gas at 253.7 nanometer. Detection limits for this technique are in the parts per billion range, making it an excellent mercury detection atomization method. So what happens here is that first of all, the atom is converted into an ion, and then later the ion is further reduced to probably make the atom again that we require finally. So this is done because it is already very difficult to make mercury an inert, to bring mercury in an inert situation, and that's why it is done at a normal temperature. And it's as it is written that it is this concentration is factually absorbed by at 253.7 nanometer wavelength. Next slide. This is going to be explained by Yash, I think.
Excellent, Kriti. बहुत सरस present કર્યું બધું જ.
Thank you, ma'am.
સરસ content present કર્યું.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next કોણ છે? કૃતિ પછી? લબ્ધિ આવી?
મારું સિંગલ બીમ ને ડબલ બીમ.
આ પોર્શન કોણ કરવાનું છે? કૃતિ?
Ma'am, હું જ કરી લઉં.
કે પણ કોણ કરવાનું હતું પણ?
લબ્ધિ કરે છે તું?
No, mine is difference between UV and.
Okay, this is probably mine only. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Atomic absorption process. So I'll just read this out first and then explain. The quantity of interest in atomic absorption measurements is the amount of light. So I've already actually said this in the principle, but I'll repeat it again. Okay. The quantity of interest in atomic absorption measurements is the amount of light at the resonant wavelength which is absorbed as the light passes through the cloud of atoms. As the number of atoms of the light path increases, the amount of light absorbed increases in a predictable way. As we already discussed, so we have already understood the whole concept of atomization and atomic absorption. So what the process simply says is that when a sample is introduced for atomic absorption, in the spectrometer, the amount of wavelength that is absorbed depends on the amount of atoms present. More number of atoms present will have more amount of absorption, which means we will be able to understand the quantitative, which will give us the quantitative analysis, which is that it will tell us the quantity of the element that we are looking for in the sample that we introduced. The atom cloud required for atomic absorption measurements is produced by supplying enough thermal energy to the sample to dissociate the chemical compounds into free atoms. Aspirating a solution of the sample into a flame aligned with light beam serves this purpose. Under the proper flame conditions, most of the atoms will remain in the ground state form and are capable of absorbing light in the analytical wavelength from a source lamp. So, as we know the atomic absorption process, we know that initially a flame is introduced from which the sample is passed, and after that it is sent to the detector. That happens because the element is present in a chemical compound in the sample instead of individual atoms. So So a flame is introduced, which is going to maintain a certain temperature for the elements to break down in the form of atoms, but not so much heat that it breaks down into electrons or further ions. That is why there is a source lamp, and that purpose is going to be served by the flame. After that, the ease and speed at which precise and accurate determinations can be made is why atomic absorption is already famous amongst the various methods of quantitative analysis. Next slide. एक सेकंड मैम मारू नेट एक सेकंड मैम
શું થયું? હેલો પ્રીતિ,
મેમ થોડા નેટવર્ક ઇસ્યુ છે.
શું?
મેમ થોડા નેટવર્ક ઇસ્યુ છે અને ઇન્ટરનેટ ના થતું સર. હવે
હજી કેટલી સ્લાઇડ
Hello.
સબી પ્રીતિની? હેલો,
હા મેમ હું આવી ગઈ છું. Okay. So as I initially, while explaining the principle, I said that there are three branches: atomic emission, atomic. Kabir has also said this: atomic absorption and atomic fluorescence. So the third field in spectroscopy is atomic fluorescence. This technique incorporates aspects of both atomic absorption and atomic emission. Like atomic absorption, ground state atoms created in a flame are excited by focusing a beam of light into the atomic vapor. Instead of looking at the amount of light absorbed in the process, however, the emission resulting from the decay of the atoms excited by the source light is measured. The intensity of this fluorescence increases with increasing atom concentration, providing the basis for quantitative determination. So what this tells us is that, as we have already seen in atomic absorption, the ground atoms are excited in the flame, and then we measure the quantity of light absorbed in this process. Whereas the emission that happens by decay of the atoms present in the excited form, that emission is in the form of fluorescence, and that is going to be measured in this, which will tell us the quantity, which will help us with the quantitative determination. That is the basic principle of atomic fluorescence. The source lamp for atomic fluorescence is mounted at an angle to the rest of the optical system, so that the light detector sees only the fluorescence in the flame and not the light from the lamp itself. As we already know, that in atomic emission there is light emitted, which is with the help of a detector is used for quantitative determination. But if we want to understand the emission that happens in the form of fluorescence, then the angle has to be arranged in a way that the light detector only sees the only captures the emission in the form of fluorescence that can be used for the quantitative determination. While atomic absorption is the most widely applied of the three techniques and usually offers several advantages, particular benefits may be gained with either emission or fluorescence in special analytical situations. So this is truly a special type of emission, because there are certain situations that we already discussed, that how there are different kinds of elements present in samples that we use. For example, we said that very highly reactive elements like arsenic, or elements like mercury that are present at a very high vapor pressure. They are both used in atomic absorption spectroscopy. But if there are elements which are which radiate energy, then those kind of elements can be detected easily by this method as compared to emission and absorption, and that is why this is used for very specific spectroscopy. Next. This is the single beam atomic absorption spectroscopy, where there is.
મેમ આમાં છે ને થોડી મિસ્ટેક થઈ ગઈ. આ ફિગર એકચ્યુઅલી ડબલ બીમ નું છે. પણ ખાલી મેમ આમાં બહુ એટલો ફરક નથી ડબલ બીમ ને સિંગલ બીમ માં. ઉપરની ખાલી એક રેફરન્સ બીમ.
વાંધો નહીં બેવનો ડિફરન્સ સમજાવી દો, કોઈ વાંધો નથી. તમે સબમિટ કરો પ્રેઝન્ટેશન ત્યારે કરેક્ટ કરી દેજો.
હા મેમ કરી દેજો. સિંગલ બીમ માં છે ને ખાલી આ રેફરન્સ બીમ ખાલી થોડીક વાર માટે નેગ્લેક્ટ કરવામાં રહેશે. બાકી બધું પ્રોસેસ ને બધું જ સેમ છે, ખાલી એક આ રેફરન્સ બીમ નહીં. So first I will explain the components of the single beam and then I will explain the process. So basically in this process light is emitted from the light source and absorbance is measured from the detector. The first component is the light source. Kabir, slide change करते हैं. First, what is a spectrophotometer? The spectrophotometer are the instruments which are working at a wavelength where absorbance is maximum. Now, with the help of spectrophotometer, qualitative and quantitative analysis of any type of sample can be done. The sample can be solid, liquid, gas, colored or colorless. So, now, basically, there are two types of spectrophotometers, single beam and double beam. The earlier figure was of single beam spectrophotometer. Now, the first component of single beam is a light source. Basically, there are two types of radiation sources: hollow cathode lamp and electrodeless discharge lamp. Generally, a hollow cathode lamp is used more, in which the cathode is made of the metal of the substance which is to be analyzed, and the anode is of tungsten. Each hollow cathode lamp will have a particular current for optimum performance, and if an alloy is used, it can result in multi-element lamp. Second is chopper. Next slide. Chopper is nothing but a rotating wheel interposed between the hollow cathode lamp and flame. The function of the chopper is to give pulsating current in the photocell. Then comes atomizer. As explained earlier, atomizers are of two types: flame atomizer and non-flame atomizer. Flame atomizer consists of total consumption burner and premixed burner, and non-flame atomizers are carbon rod or graphite furnace. Multiplied. to 1000 volt is applied. When this potential is applied, the inert gas is ionized and it eliminates positively charged ions which move towards cathode. This fast moving positively charged ions removes the atoms from the surface of the cathode, and this process is called sputtering as explained earlier. Now, the atoms removed from the surface of the cathode collide with the positively charged ion and gets excited. When they return to their original state, they emit their characteristic radiation. Now, this radiation is then goes to chopper. The chopper breaks the light and produces intermittent radiation. Now, this intermittent radiation is then goes to flame, in which two processes happens. First, the atomizer directly aspirates the sample into the flame. Then the flame consists of unexcited atoms which are aspirated by the atomizer. When the intermittent radiation is incident in the flame which has unexcited atoms, they absorb the radiation. So then the same process happens. The excited atoms comes back to their original state and they emit some radiation. This radiation is then transmitted to the monochromator, which allows only one wavelength at a time to fall on the photomultiplier tube. When this wavelength enters the detector, a current is produced. Then, if the current is low, amplifier used to amplify the current, and then it is transmitted to the readout device. In readout device, a dial is produced. Dial is there, which gives us the amount of radiation absorbed by the unexcited atoms present in the ground state in terms of absorbance. Now, by applying the Beer-Lambert's law, we can find out the concentration of the solution by knowing the absorbance. This is the basic process of a single beam atomic absorption spectroscopy. The advantages of single beam systems. Single beam instruments are less expensive and due to non-splitting of the source beam results in high sensitivity of detection. Disadvantages. The single beam system is unstable because of disturbances like electronic circuit fluctuations, voltage fluctuations, and mechanical components instability. Now, double beam systems. So, the whole process of the double beam system is same as the single beam system, but in this reference beam is used. The light beam from the source is split into the sample beam and reference beam by the mechanical chopper. The reference beam monitors the lamp energy, where the sample beams reflect sample absorption as it does in the single beam. Now, the only difference is that the determination of absorbance is given by the ratio of the sample and reference beam, which are recombined before moving to the monochromator. Now, due to this arrangement, the effects due to drift in lamp intensity, electronic and mechanical fluctuations can be eliminated. So this is the main advantage of double beam system over the single beam system. But the only disadvantage of the double beam system is that it is comparatively expensive than single beam. Thank you.
Okay. Next.
Next is the difference between atomic absorption and UV visible spectroscopy. The first difference is in the use of the spectroscopy. So absorption spectroscopy is used in chemical analysis, such as in protein analysis, where visible UV light is tested, whereas UV visible light is concerned with the visible spectra of light and is used heavily in the ink and dyes. Other basic differences between both the spectroscope. Hello.
हाँ
Other
बोलो बोलो सांभळू
other differences between UV visible and atomic absorption spectroscopy are UV visible spectroscopy. In UV visible spectroscopy, tungsten filament is used as a source. In atomic absorption spectroscopy, hollow cathode lamp is used as a source. In UV visible, no need to atomize the sample, but the sample must be atomized for the observation in atomic absorption spectroscopy. In atomic absorption spectroscopy, the absorption lines are extremely sharp, whereas in the other one, the absorption lines are inherently broad. UV visible spectroscopy can identify molecular structures, whereas atomic absorption spectroscopy can identify over 65 metals. Next. The analytical wavelength is the lambda max in UV visible, and in atomic absorption spectroscopy, the analytical wavelength is the resonance wavelength of the analyte. Next. Now, quantitative analysis will be explained by Zenith.
હેલો નેક્સ્ટ
હેલો હેલો અવાજ આવે છે ને હેલો
હા બોલ ઝેનિથ
good afternoon. So I'm going to explain the quantitative analysis by atomic absorption. So the atomic absorption process is already illustrated in the preceding slides. So now we know that atoms absorb ultraviolet or visible light and make transitions to higher energy levels. It measures the amount of energy in the form of photons of light that are absorbed by the sample. Through quantitative analysis carried out by atomic absorption spectroscopy, we can identify different kinds of metals with their quantities. This is done by reading the spectra produced when the sample is excited by the radiation. So, if you observe the atomic absorption by the term of light intensity, the light at the resonance wavelength of initial intensity I naught is focused on the flame cells containing ground state atoms. The initial light intensity is decreased by an amount determined by the atom concentration in the flame cell. The light is then directed onto the detector, where the reduced intensity of light I is measured. The amount of light absorption is determined by comparing I and I naught, that is initial intensity and final intensities. Next figure. This is a very simple figure. We can see on left hand side the source giving out light of initial intensity I naught in the flame cell where ground state atoms are excited, and the reduced intensity of light I is measured by the detector. Next slide. So there are several terms which are used to define the amount of light absorption which has taken place. First is transmittance, which is defined as the ratio of
તમારે પહેલા પ્રેઝન્ટેશન ને સ્ટાર્ટિંગ માં પ્રેઝન્ટ કરવી જોઈએ. આખું પ્રેઝન્ટેશન પતી ગયા પછી તમે કરશો. ઓકે ચલો પહેલા સબમિટ કરો ફાઇનલ પ્રેઝન્ટેશન ત્યારે એને વ્યવસ્થિત અરેન્જ કરી દો.
So the transmittance is defined as the ratio of final intensity to the initial intensity expressed as capital T equal to I by I naught. So understanding transmittance is an indication of fraction of initial light which passes through the flame cell to fall on the indicator. And, the percentage transmission is simply the transmission expressed in percentage terms. So percentage T is 100 into I by I naught. And percentage absorption is a term complement of the percentage transmission, defining the percentage of initial light intensity which is absorbed in the flame. So that is percentage A, which is 100 minus percent I. So these terms are easy to visualize on physical basis. The fourth term, that is absorbance, is a very important term in quantitative analysis. So it is purely mathematical quantity, which is expressed as capital A equal to log of initial intensity by final intensity, that is log of I naught by I. Absorbance is most convenient term for characterizing light absorption in the absorption spectrophotometry, as a quantity follows a linear relationship with concentration. Beer's law defines this relationship, that is a relationship of absorption and concentration, where capital A equal to A into B into C, where capital A is absorbance, small a is absorption coefficient, small b is the length of light path intercepted by the absorption species in the absorption cell, and small c would be concentration of absorbing species. So this equation, Beer's law, simply states that the absorbance is directly proportional to the concentration of absorbing species for a given set of instrumental conditions. Next slide. So this directly proportional behavior between absorbance and concentration is observed in that atomic absorption process when the absorptions of the standard solution containing known concentration of analyte. The known concentration of analyte are measured and the absorbance data are plotted against the concentration. So a calibration relationship similar to the figure is established. The figure is given on the right hand side. Over the region where Beer's law relationship is observed, calibration yields a straight line. So straight line denotes the Beer's law, and as the concentration of absorbance increases, non-ideal behavior in the absorption process can cause a deviation from linearity, as shown the curve after the straight line in absorbance versus the concentration graph. Hence, the curve seen after the straight line denotes a non-ideal behavior in absorption and the concentration. So after such a calibration is established, where the absorbance of solution of unknown concentration may be measured and the concentration determined from the calibration curve. Now in modern instrumentation, the calibration can be made within the instrument. Figure में दिखाऊँ मैं within the instrument to provide a direct.
Figure 1.6. Where is figure 1.6?
मैम આ ફિગર ના નીચેથી નીકળી ગયું 1.6 લખેલું હતું मैम राइट हैंड साइड ઉપર આપી
ટેક્સ્ટ કોપી કરો તો એને એડિટ તો કરો હે બધું જાતે ના લખો તો કઈ નહીં
ના મેમ બટ ફિગર ના નીચે ફિગર 1.6 લખ્યું તો it would be viable.
હા તો પણ તમારે તમારી રીતનું નોમેનક્લેચર આપી શકો ને ફિગર ને
હા એટલે જ મેં કીધું
ચલો
એ ફિગર ડાઉનલોડ કરીને ત્યારે એ નથી આવ્યું. So in modern instrumentation, the calibration can be made within the instrument to provide a direct readout of unknown concentration. જે આપણે find કરવાનું હોય છે આમાં. Since the advent of microcomputers, accurate calibration even in the non-linear region where proportionality between the absorption and concentration is not well established is simple. Here is the end of our presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Timely submit કરી દેજો. હવે તમારું કોઈના પેન્ડિંગ એઆઈ અને બીઆરએસ ના પીપીટીસ બાકી હોય તો કહો.
મેમ આ પીપીટી બધા સબમિટ કરવાની કે ખાલી ગ્રુપ લીડર કે કોઈ એક જ જણે કરવાની?
લાઈક એક ગ્રુપની એક જ પીપીટી હશે તો એનીવન કેન સબમિટ પણ એક વખત સબમિટ થવી જોઈએ.
ઓકે મેમ એટલે એક જ જણ કરી દે તો ચાલે ને?
હા હા ચાલે ચાલે પણ જોઈએ હા જે પ્રેઝન્ટ હતું
શું કેવું
પ્રેઝન્ટ
મેમ?
પીપીટી આપતી વખતે બધા જ
શું કેવું મેમ?
બધાના નામ મેન્શન થયેલા હોવા જોઈએ જે પીપીટી આપતી વખતે પ્રેઝન્ટ હોય એ બધા જ એબ્સેન્ટ હોય એ લોકો
હા ઓકે મેમ.
હા ઓકે ચલો હમણાં 3:30 ના મળીએ અત્યારે હું મીટિંગ એન્ડ કરું છું.